Hi, Jonathan.
Hello, Bijan. How are you?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Nice to see you again.
Yeah, pleasure is mine as well. Yeah, maybe a little introduction for our listeners. So you reached out to me, I would say 4 weeks ago
Mm,
about the coaching, and we had you're a coach as well, and
yeah.
we had a very nice session, which we also put online on YouTube. I will link this video also in the description of this video. And yeah, we kind of immediately clicked, and I really liked your method. So we had a second session where you coached me, which was fun. It's really nice, and I think it's makes sense. Maybe this is the sense of this video to to give the listeners a little bit an introduction, what you're doing exactly, about your background, and everything. So yeah, I'm excited that you found the time.
Well, thank you. I mean, I look forward to it.
Yeah, then let's go right into it. Do you want to share a
Sure.
little bit? Maybe we start with your life journey, like I don't know where you grew up, where you're from. So maybe you want to start with that.
Yeah, sure. So I'm from South Africa. I grew up in South Africa all over,
Mhm.
mostly around Johannesburg and Pretoria, the two big
Interesting.
cities.
Hmm.
And I mean, I would say my childhood wasn't particularly awesome. I wasn't a popular kid at school. It's just a normalish kind of guy, I think.
Yeah.
And yeah, after school, I didn't have a clear direction of where I wanted to go. So I traveled to the UK where I worked, just any job I could find really. So I didn't know what I was going to do. And it was during those travels that I found books that really inspired me to get into the helping profession.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, that's where we are today.
Interesting. Um, and I know there are also some. So you have another business. So you were also yeah, or maybe or let's stick with the beginnings maybe. So you said
Okay.
you got interesting in books and reading, and
Mm.
any other interests as a young person, like any other things.
Yes, I mean, I was interested in like when I was a teenager, because
Mhm,
before teenager life, I don't think I was really passionate about anything except video games.
mhm.
So
Kind
that
of
was my
normal.
childhood.
Yeah.
Studying and video games, and I mean, a little bit of sport.
Yeah.
And in my teen years, I started to get interested in psychology,
Mhm.
and I started to get interested in health and fitness. So I started going to the gym quite a lot.
Do you remember how you get first in touch with this topic?
Yes, my mom was very interested in health, natural health.
Hmm.
When no one knew about juicing vegetables and fruits and raw diets and vegetarianism, my mom was into that. She was reading all the books and then she would tell us about these things.
Oh, interesting.
So I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then I learned about vitamins and minerals and deficiencies. So from a young age, my mom sparked my interest in health
Hmm.
and food being medicine.
Interesting.
And yeah, and from there, when I got into the fitness space, all that knowledge came in very handy. So I was able to create a supplement regime. I knew about rest and recuperation and recovery and things which a lot of beginner athletes miss.
Hmm.
So that was a great help. And then on my dad's side with psychology, he was interested in yoga and spiritual things, which in my time in my country was like, you don't talk about that.
Hmm.
If it isn't
Woo
Christian,
woo.
yeah, if it isn't Christian or taught by the church, it's evil.
Yeah, yeah.
So anyway, I was like, this forbidden knowledge. I must go and find out.
Mhm.
So at the time, my vocabulary wasn't very good to read the spiritual books, but I always remember seeing them and saying, when I'm older, when I can read well at that level, I will read those books.
Mhm.
And yeah, so I always had that interest. Seeing my dad do yoga and doing handstands and funny things. That always inspired me. I still can't do a handstand or a headstand, but I was still inspired by him. So my parents, yeah, they were probably my biggest influences.
Yeah, that's amazing. So they put the seeds on the right places. That sounds
Yeah,
good.
yeah, it was their passion that I absorbed,
Mm,
and I'm so grateful to them for that.
yeah, that's amazing. And then how did your work life start? How did you started in getting into work life?
Well, my work life is a bit of a zigzag story,
Mhm.
really. So I started, as I said, when I left school, I just took.
Maybe before we start this, sorry that I interrupt you.
Sure.
What kind of sports did you do? I'm just curious.
I did a bit of football,
Hmm.
athletics. I was very fast when I was
Yeah.
younger.
Hmm.
I could sprint the 100 meters. And I was very often number one or number two.
Yeah, cool.
So I would always finish, in the top three at least.
Hmm.
So I was pretty good. And shot put, throwing the metal ball.
Hmm.
Yeah, I was pretty good at that.
Cool. Awesome.
But interestingly, what happened was I feel like I hit puberty before my colleagues, my friends.
Hmm.
So it was 1 or 2 years when I was bigger and stronger than
Oh, that's,
everybody else.
that's cool.
But in the very next year, when I turned 14, everyone went whoop, and their muscles went whoop, and then me and the shot put team gone, me and the sprinting team gone, and I
Oh,
didn't compete in sports after that time.
ah, that must be a hard time then to or what or how was it for you then?
Well, I think I was proud of my achievements,
Hmm.
and then when they were gone, and instead of getting praise, I would be laughed at. So I was like, okay, you know what? I'm just gonna withdraw from sports for a while.
Yeah.
But then when I found bodybuilding, that's what I went into, and that
Hmm.
was a solo sport, no competition required. Just
Hmm.
do your best, lift the,
Yeah.
the heaviest, and build much muscle as I could.
Hmm. Cool. Yeah, interesting that you
Yeah,
it's always. I think it's in the situations it's always hard, but looking back, it's always maybe it's a good lesson to learn also to cope with that you're not the best always and that you can fail in life. It's maybe
yeah.
not a bad
And I think there's a saying in English: every dog has his day.
lesson.
So there's a time in your life when you can be excellent at something.
Yeah.
But if you don't adjust, or if your body can't adjust, the physical parameters um, stop it and enable someone else, things change. So I think you always have to be adaptable
Yeah.
and ready to take on the next challenge.
Yeah. And it's also not always in our powers. So there's a lot of talk always, also especially the coaching realm about make it happen and fight through it. But there are basically
Mm,
some conditions given from outside you can't influence. So
yeah.
and then especially then it's yeah, it's hard to deal with them. And I think it's good to learn anyways dealing with the situations in life.
Yes,
Yeah.
I agree.
Cool. Yeah, yeah. Let's go to your work life then. Sorry, I interrupted you before.
Yeah,
So,
that's fine. So the work life started after school. I didn't know what I was going to do. I worked at a video shop. Then I worked at a gym because I was interested in fitness. I became a fitness instructor working at the gym. I didn't become a trainer because to become a trainer was a lengthy study, and I just wanted to help people use the machines. So I did that. That was enjoyable, but it was very long hours. We had to open the gym at 4:30 in the morning, and then split shifts. Have a little rest, and you got to close the gym at 10 o'clock. So it's like, wow, I didn't sleep much. Might have gotten 4 or 5 hours sleep a night.
yeah, crazy.
And so after that, I went to the UK and I worked in pubs and restaurants.
How old
Go,
were you then?
I was 19,
Hmm.
19 and 20.
And
I
and
worked
how
on a
how how
farm.
was that like? How was the shift from South Africa coming to UK?
Oh, it was a big shift.
Yeah,
In South Africa, in those days, I don't know if you know about our political situation there.
a little bit. Yeah.
Well, let's just say that people like me had a very luxurious lifestyle
Mm.
and treated like better than they should have been.
Mm.
You know, we had servants. We were, treated unfairly well because of, because of the political situation.
Mm.
So when I went to the UK, that was not like that at all.
Mm-hmm.
And in the UK, I was the servant.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a big change in my mentality, and also giving me the wisdom of the world. It's like, hey, actually, the world doesn't work like that. The real world doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
Here in Europe, everyone is equal. Just because you've got a fairer skin doesn't make you more superior to others. So in South Africa, that's how it was for many years. It changed when I was 14, but it still takes time for society to change. Like today, it's not like that.
Mm.
Not entirely.
Yeah.
But I would say it was hard. It was a hard adjustment because when I got there, I had a certain attitude which didn't fit into the UK way of life.
Mm-hmm.
And within 1 year, I was fired 3 times. Yeah, I mean, you're working in a hotel, you think you got a good job, and the next day you serve the food from the wrong side. Get out, you're fired. It was brutal. It was really
Tough.
brutal.
Mm-hmm.
And but also it helped me to adjust and become more flexible, more resilient, more aware of risks in life. It was a very maturing experience.
Yeah.
And from the hotels, I went to work on a farm. I did all kinds of farm labor, planting, working in a greenhouse, packing seedlings, and picking strawberries, packing strawberries, all that kind of thing. Even in a cold room where you work with cold food, so you got to wear a thick coat and cutting your vegetables, weighing the. Very interesting. And
It's
so
amazing
from
that
there,
you could yeah make so much different kinds of experiences and
yeah, and I did like it. I really loved it. At that time, I didn't care about my future.
mm,
I was just living in the present, and it was a good time for me really to break free from childhood.
mm,
Making my own money, paying my own bills, buying my own clothes. That was never done before. So it was a good time. And from there, my parents had moved to Israel. My stepdad is a diplomat.
okay.
So he moved to Israel and he said, do you want to come and spend a few months with us in Tel Aviv? So I thought, okay, yeah, that sounds like a fun holiday.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to Israel and it was great, but it was very lonely because I had nothing to do, just stay at home.
Yeah.
So that's where I really got into self-development, the reading.
Mm-hmm.
So I would go to the bookshop, buy books, read them, study them. And I got into like these personal growth teachers like Wayne Dyer and Susan Jeffers. And I even got into Scientology. And I think that for me, that was the break of let's become a professional. And after reading that,
Can
yeah,
I, sorry for interrupting you. I'm just curious because that's another cultural perspective. So how was it to experience Tel Aviv, which is another culture compared to UK or South Africa? How did you adjust there?
yeah. Well, I can say that to go from South Africa to the UK was already a big shift. And in Britain, generally people are polite, but very cold, in fact, in some ways.
Mm-hmm.
And to go to Israel, Israel is not just Israelis, it's not just Jews and Muslims.
Mm-hmm.
It's Arabs and it's a lot of different people.
Mm-hmm.
And the culture was very aggressive,
Okay.
very loud, but very genuine. And I thought that was interesting. You knew where you stood with someone in Tel Aviv. They would just tell you, I don't like you.
Yeah.
In Britain, they don't tell you. They just don't invite you back.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember going to the shop to buy something, behind the counter, like a delicatessen.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't shout, they won't come. You literally have to shout, Vakasha, which means please, please, please come. I want the food.
That's funny. Yeah.
It was very interesting. And
Mm.
I appreciated my experience. Again, it was a bigger worldview that other people communicate differently, they have different values, and that's completely normal to them. And that behavior would be considered very strange to us.
Yeah.
But now I can appreciate and understand and accept people
Mm-hmm.
from all different kinds of places, different
Yeah.
backgrounds.
Yeah, that's amazing. And now to the Scientology story. I'm curious.
Yeah, okay. So Scientology marked a decision point for me to become a professional in helping.
Mm-hmm.
So when I read the book Dianetics, which is a very famous, popular book, I think it sold like 100 million copies. I was like, okay, I'm going to go to London. I'm going to train to become this kind of therapist or counselor, and I did it. I went and I trained and I worked there for several months. But living in London was very expensive, so I returned back to South Africa to continue the training, and I trained and worked there in the Church of Scientology for 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And well, something big happened inside my mind that made me one day just walk out. Now I didn't know Scientology was what it is. And I think we both have some idea of what it is. It's I don't want to say it because they're very aggressive with litigation, but it's very cult-like.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't know until it's too late.
Yeah.
And getting out was also very, very difficult. If you're someone that they've invested in, like they invested in me, they would try and track you down and bring you back. They would be at your house all hours of day and night, knocking on the door, trying to convince you. And eventually I was like, okay, I'm leaving. And I left the country again. I went back to the UK and had to reinvent myself again.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, it's must be a crazy experience. I just know I don't know so much from inside, of course, about Scientology, just the stories you hear in normal media and stuff. But again, I can relate because as I was very young, my mom was part of Jehovah's Witnesses as I grew up.
Okay.
So I have a little bit of insights in this, let's say, cult-like
Yes.
organizations. So I have also some background with this, and yeah, it's interesting too.
Yes. I mean, it is something to experience. And for people that haven't really experienced that, it's easy to judge and say, I mean, how can you do that? It's crazy.
Yeah.
But these cults survive because they have something of incredible value. And I believe that it's like when you have something very good, you must have the equal very bad sometimes. So Scientology has amazing things, as the Jehovah's Witnesses. They've got something because people feel amazing when they're in the group.
Yeah.
But then there's this dark side, which
Yeah.
you don't see.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you do see it, it's like, no, it's not that bad. And you
Yeah.
justify. I mean, I was there for 3 years, every single day, from early morning till late at night. And wow, I didn't know, but when I knew, it was like my brain broke. It was like I just could never go back.
Mm. And that's, I think, a very strong step because I know a lot of people don't manage this step, getting out and getting this perspective as well. To yeah, if you're in it, it's always hard to see it from the outside and the negative aspects, I guess. So I think it's also a sign of your strong personality that you were able to do that and getting out of it.
Well, thank you for
Because
saying.
yeah, they catch you at the beginning, like you said, with positive things like the community and like you got like family, like this basic human needs. They attract, I guess, of connectedness with others and a group and
Yes.
yeah, and then I know that's not easy to have a strong personality to get out. And
Well, as you say, they give you what you crave, and there's actually a term for it. They call it love bombing. So when a new member comes in, they shower you with appreciation and acknowledgement, and
yeah.
they tell you you're powerful, you can do anything you want. But no one else says that. No one else in the world says that to you. These guys say it, and they believe it because they were told that. So it's a love bomb. You get addicted to that feeling, and then you stick around. And even when things go wrong, it's like the love is worth it.
Yeah.
The love makes it all worth it, or does it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then from there, how did you self-invent yourself again?
So from there, I wanted to just mention quickly on the leaving of the cult. It's there's a recovery period, and you don't just leave and then you're normal again. You don't fit into society.
Mm.
So the first year after leaving Scientology, I was not socially acceptable because I was thinking like a Scientologist and trained like in the military. This is how you think. This is what you do. This is acceptable. This isn't. And it's very, very rigid. Little bit of flexibility. In fact, there's no flexibility in many of the ways. So getting back into society in the UK, which, as you know, they can be kind of cold. So if you don't fit in, like, that's it for you. So it was very tough. It was very tough. But I just continued. I just tried to have a good time. I went back to the hotel business. And around 2005, so I'd been in the UK for 2 years. There was an opportunity in South Africa. Someone in the family has started an accounting firm, and he wanted me to come and train there and do accounting, which was the least interesting thing to me in the world. And I was like, oh my God, accounting, that's terrible. I hate accounting. I hate that kind of stuff. I did accounting at school and I failed it so bad. I wouldn't even tell you what kind of marks I got. But what I did want was money. And they promised me a really good income from doing accounting. And I was like, okay, you know what? I can do this. So I went back to South Africa, saw how accounting firm was run. Being, the brother-in-law of the founder, I got to see inside, spend time with him, see how he works with clients, see how he works with his staff. I didn't realize that was going to be 10 years later. That was going to be my, I would draw on that experience to start my own accounting firm. Mm-hmm. So when I worked there, I wasn't yet a trained accountant. So I did odd jobs, IT, while still studying a little bit here and there. I got into web design, IT, fixing computers. That was also one of the things I was interested in. And then from that, I didn't become an accountant because I went more into IT, and I got another job, and I was very happy. And as things went, I got into personal development again for myself. I was starting to read Tony Robbins' books and doing meditation, which in Scientology is forbidden, by the way. Meditation is strictly forbidden.
Okay.
And reading Tony Robbins, you get into big trouble. He's like the devil. He's like the competition.
Okay.
Don't go there. Yeah. And then through that passion, I was like, hey, you know what? I'm not going to work for someone else. I'm going to start my own business teaching meditation. And that was, again, the second step for me in my coaching career. That's when I started studying coaching, started studying NLP very seriously, started studying other things, EFT. I don't know if you've heard of EFT, it's the tapping. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I started my own practice, and I was very good at internet marketing, so I was very busy. And I did that for several years until my wife, who is an accountant, who I met at my brother-in-law's firm, mm-hmm. She finished her articles, finished her things, and we're like, hey, let's start an accounting business together. Mm-hmm. So I left coaching because now at this point, coaching wasn't very lucrative. I was busy, but I wasn't going to have nice things at that point. So we got back into accounting. We started several accounting businesses. 2 of them failed, but the third one miraculously went fantastic. Mm-hmm. And within a short time, we had 7 staff, 3 senior accountants, tax practitioners, nice offices. And I had all those nice things that I wanted at last. Yeah. And then you're wondering how I got back into coaching.
Of course.
After a few years of working with staff and the problems of accounting and taxes, and I started to feel really out of place. Like my heart wasn't in there anymore. I had already achieved what I wanted financially. So when I had a call to help someone with a coaching project, I was like, okay, this is the universe telling me something. So this was 2018. And from that point, I got really, really excited. I was like, yeah, I can do this. So I said to my wife, let's leave South Africa. Let's basically retire from South Africa, move the business online, do what you can, and we'll move to the south of France, which was a huge goal for us. Mm-hmm. And within 2 months of making that decision, we were in the south of France.
Wow.
And we lived in the south of France for 3.5 years while I was developing my practice. I was working with volunteers and whoever was ready to do some research work with me, and we researched all the things that I had used before, as well as new things that I'd learned. And I did some coach training with Tony Robbins, coach training, and people connected to him. I did that work, and that's kind of where we are today. Having done all that training, basically just getting back into it, and now things have really turned out quite well in the coaching space for me.
That's amazing. Yeah, it's really interesting, your whole story. Like, I think you have very profound experiences with different cultures, with different also approaches in coaching, and I think this is a very, very good fundamentals to work with people and to be able to adjust to any kind of personality and cultural background. Also knowing different cultural backgrounds, I think, especially in coaching these days, if you do so much remotely, so you can have a client from the US, you can have a client from Europe. So, but knowing differences in the cultures, or from Africa, and yeah, I think it's very important also to understand the context of people. It's also an experience I made, and yeah, it's really amazing. I think there are rarely people out there with such a profound understanding of different cultures and different backgrounds. Yeah, it's really amazing to hear.
Thank you. I mean, it has been interesting. It has been interesting. And I mean, I really do appreciate Africa. I mean, I've been out of Africa now 4 years, and I really miss it. I mean, I moved to Scotland recently. I don't know if I mentioned that, but I mean, I live in Scotland because I moved for the children, for them to be educated in English, because French was wonderful, but we couldn't give them their best in a foreign language. But I miss Africa, and I often work with African clients, and I they're lovely to work with.
Yeah. What would you say about your personality? What are important things that making you a good coach in your role, actually? Like, what are the most important, let's call it traits, or I don't know, qualities you have now? What would you say out of this journey and of your life journey?
I can say that what drives me to do well, where I think I have an advantage, is I'm very, very curious, because I have that Scientology background, and I have a way of mapping out the psyche based on that model, plus psychology, plus counseling, plus NLP. I'm very, very curious into everyone I meet, into how their mind works. And sometimes I can see things, I can see, like, that's interesting. If there was just a small change here, that would result in a big change over here. If I could just do that for you just quickly, and then I would do it. So that interest. And I think also I get pleasure from having other people be happy. So, but in terms of my personality, I would describe myself as someone that is curious, helpful. I would also say that I have a little bit of conflicts. So inside of me, I feel like an introvert. And sometimes I feel like an extrovert, but it's like I always feel that I have conflicting identities. One time it's like this, one time it's like that. But overall, all these identities are working together, and it's coming through nicely. So I don't even know what to say, except that this identity, this personality, is always changing. What I was a year ago is different from how I am today. Except I suppose the underlying care and curiosity and pleasure in helping other people has remained probably my driving forces in coaching.
It's amazing. Welcome to the team, by the way. So
thanks.
There's no human being out there who doesn't have this inner conflict and different sides and aspects. And,
yes.
Yeah.
Indeed, but it's which side wins?
Yeah.
Which side wins?
You have an amazing empathy. You're very empathetic. That I felt this from the beginning. What do you think? Where do you have this empathy from? This ability to feel with others and tune into others?
I think people that have experienced suffering or have witnessed suffering and become aware of that suffering will have empathy. So, I think growing up in South Africa and seeing some pretty stressful things, racist things, and then seeing how in the rest of the world it wasn't like that, made me have a lot of compassion. So now when I see that, I always feel I want to experience things through other people's eyes. I understand, what do they believe? What are they feeling? What's their perception of their reality? How does that result in where they are today? So that desire or that ability to go into someone else's shoes probably gives me that extra empathy that you're seeing. Witness other people suffering.
Yeah.
And I think, growing up in South Africa, it was it was illegal for blacks and whites to be friends. If you were friends, it was called fraternizing, and then you could go to jail. White people would go to jail for having black friends. So it was very legal to be unpleasant to anyone who wasn't white. I mean, it's bizarre. It's absolutely bizarre. Today, I couldn't imagine anything like that happening, but that happened when I was up until age 10. I witnessed a lot of that.
Crazy. Yeah. So, would you say that empathy is learnable then from others? If someone is interested in becoming a coach and maybe is not super empathetic, do you think it's learnable?
I think anything is learnable. I think it's about how you learn it. With empathy, I would say you need to model it, to use an NLP term. Find out what empathetic people are doing inside themselves, and then copy that that sequence. What are you doing? How are you feeling empathetic? And empathetic, I don't try to be empathetic. It's not something that I'm trying to do. It's just, for me, it's natural because I can see what other people are seeing and feeling, and I understand. And I imagine myself in that situation. So I would say there's a bit of, I wouldn't say sympathy, but I can imagine what it would feel like if I was in that situation.
Yeah.
So I think, yes, it is learnable. Just find the right way to do it.
Interesting. Yeah. And so you looked into so many different aspects of coaching and different methods, different techniques. What would you say for you today, if you work with clients, what is the most powerful, the most impactful to help people change? What are your favorites there right now?
Okay, well, I have several tools that I draw on almost exclusively now. I've done a lot of, as you say, I've done a lot of things. I did kinesiology, muscle testing, EFT, lots of interesting things. I even used the pendulum to assess things. I think there's a place for it. There's a time for that. But what I've come down to as absolute definite process or definite bodies of knowledge that get results, I would say there's only three things. It's beliefs, it's identities, and it's creating a future vision for yourself. Everything else feeds into those three things. So even if we're doing EFT wouldn't be a primary tool. It would be a supplemental tool to change beliefs or to de-traumatize an event, something like that.
Mhm.
So those are my three.
Okay. So, and you primarily work with people then to unveil these three aspects.
Yeah, I think I got into studying beliefs when I trained to become a kinesiologist, which is the muscle testing and that kind of thing. Beliefs was a big part of it because we are taught that beliefs are inherited, beliefs are made up, and then they lodge inside your body and energetically, and then you find a way to release them. So beliefs became a constant focus. I would say that technique of EFT with beliefs is not very effective. And I wouldn't do it. Today, I wouldn't do it at all. But beliefs create your reality. They create your perception. So if you can change a belief, you can change an outcome. You can change a thought, you can change a feeling, and you can change what people do. And when you change what people do, you change the results that they get in their life. So beliefs are fundamental.
Okay, interesting.
But also fundamental is, sorry to interrupt you, is the
No.
identity. So when you have an identity, when you say, I am like this, I am this kind of person, that identity comes with its own beliefs. So there's almost a way to short circuit your beliefs, or not short circuit, but to shortcut. If you can change your identity, you leave all those old beliefs behind and you create a new identity with new beliefs. And if you can stay in that identity, those limiting beliefs don't hurt you. But you can't get to change your identity until you first change some beliefs. So there's a progression in steps. And then once you've changed your identity, you can move on to creating a compelling future self vision. And that future self has become recently an incredible part of the coaching program, because what are you doing it for? What are you trying to create? And when you have that vision, you know where you're going to go. And that vision pulls you into the future, which has been incredibly powerful as a process.
Yeah, sounds amazing. For all listeners out there, if you're interested, I think if you want to look a little bit inside of what Jonathan's doing, we recorded a coaching last week, and I will link this video also in the description here so that you can see firsthand, some of the insights Jonathan is talking about right now. Very, very interesting. It was also for me very, very amazing experience. Is there any story coming to your mind from so many coachings you did, like which stuck in your head, something maybe shareable, without mentioning, of course, specific names? But
I've had a few instances of what I would call miracles, miraculous healings or miraculous changings, and certainly not what I expected. One of my clients was referred to me because she had recently lost a pregnancy. And I think she was told at that point that she wouldn't conceive again, that there had been damage from that operation.
Yeah.
And the depression was absolutely debilitating. Couldn't get out of bed, couldn't do anything. So we did a process called, it's like a parts communication process. And in that process, we started speaking to her reproductive organs, her ovaries and her womb and her cervix, and have them talk to each other. I mean, this is like a parts communication process. And I was surprised to see that this woman was like really having a real conversation, and these parts were really communicating, and they were releasing things. And she was saying, oh my God, I feel like lightning has struck my body. And I feel buzzing with energy and relief. And the session ended with her laughing and crying. I was, surprised because that's never happened before.
Wow.
But a month later, she fell pregnant. So that session had done something to create a healing, and she fell pregnant, and her baby's now 3 years old and super happy and healthy. So for me, that's something that I can say I was guided through intuition to help her have a conversation and heal those parts spiritually, psychologically and spiritually, which actually changed her physical body. So that I find that to be a very interesting story.
That's a really amazing story. Yeah. And it also shows how powerful, this connection in our subconscious and this connection mind and body can be to shift things around. Sometimes it's really unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean the mind, as we know through epigenetics, that the mind affects the body. Your beliefs affect your body.
Yeah.
And if you believe certain things like you're going to get sick, you probably will. If you believe you're not going to get sick, you probably won't. So there is some evidence that points towards mind definitely is over matter.
Yeah.
In some ways.
Yeah, that's well said. Is there anything else which you want maybe to share with our listeners? Any aspects, whether it's about coaching or your life or anything? What I didn't ask so far.
Well, I can tell you what I've been researching recently. So I've had people ask me about what works and what doesn't, and what makes some people get results from personal development, and what doesn't. And I've done a lot of research into that, and also being a practitioner and doing things that didn't work, but doing things where you think you've handled the problem, then it comes back.
Yeah.
And so I think, I'm busy creating now an assessment to find out what will work for you today. Because a year ago, EFT might have been the best thing for you, but today it wouldn't. Maybe NLP is the best thing for you. So I'm creating an assessment which can look at what are you ready for right now? What's your level of development? Are you able to do advanced NLP processes? Are you able to do deep spiritual processes? If that's the case, then don't mess around with the introductory ones. If you're if you're at this level, don't mess around with these advanced ones. So people are doing processes that they're not ready for, or that it's not right for them. So I think it would be very helpful if we could know for sure what will work for you. And that is the test that I'm currently creating.
That sounds really interesting.
Thank you. Well, I think if you can avoid wasting time and money and suffering on doing things that don't work, wouldn't that be valuable? That's what I'm trying to do. Definitely. Spend your time and money on what will work for you right now.
How there comes a question to my mind about this. What would you say, how important is the type of personality regarding to which method is working and which not? How are these connected?
I think it is connected because your personality is connected to where you are in your life. At what level of, let's say, mental, emotional, spiritual development you are. So your emotions and your way of being, your habitual way of being, thinking, feeling, and acting, you would call that your personality. So absolutely. If you're someone that is fearful, stuck in fear, can't leave the house in fear, that's the level that you're at. And for someone that is, are you talking about for a client or for a coach?
I meant it for a client.
So for a client, yes, absolutely. Personality would definitely affect. And we could assess based on their habitual way of being, what processes would be most effective. And the worse off, the lower the process, and the better off, the higher the process.
For example, some people are more like in their heads, they're more like intellectual. Some people are more into feelings and more in tune with themselves, with emotions maybe. So yeah, I find in my experience with clients that there's not one fits all. And I think I do it kind of with my intuition. I also have my toolkit and toolbox of different methods, and I think I use my intuition, but it's very interesting to hear that you're working on a process to really evaluate what fits best for a client. Yeah, that sounds really interesting.
Thanks. Well, I think, as you say, we have intellectuals, more like cerebral, and people that are very connected with their body. And also, if we use NLP terminology, of people that are visual or auditory or kinesthetic. So there would definitely be part of that assessment. And I think you know through intuition when someone communicates to you, and you can see that they're visual because their language and their body and the way they speak, you'd probably intuitively use the visual style process. Like, how does this look to you? You wouldn't say necessarily, how does it feel to you?
Mm-hmm.
So that comes from your training, that you would know instinctively what to do.
Yeah. Cool. Anything else you want to share?
No, I think you've asked good questions, and I'm happy to have answered them. Thank you. It's so nice to be able to share the story. Yeah.
It's a pleasure. It's always amazing to find people that are so passionate and ambitious in this journey of helping others, and always finding new ways and to help others, and inventing. You invented yourself so many times, and it's really inspiring to hear your journey. It's really cool.
Thank you very much, Bijan.
Where can people find you?
Well, I have two websites. The main website is beliefclearing.com and also at my name, jonathanturpin.com.
Okay. I will put both links also in the video description below, so feel free to check it out. And so this is the best way to reach out to you, over your websites, I guess.
Yeah, the website has the contact form, and that's the best way to get in touch with me.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
See you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.